So the Canadian Grand Prix qualifying, again, I remember having a debate previously. There was one very chaotic, qualifying session. And so the season said, you know what? We're going to up ourselves this time.
We'll beat that.
So much rain, so much chaos, so many penalties.
4 to be exact.
Four penalties. Far too many. And none which were wrong, by the way.
Yeah.
None which I can say, yeah, you know what? This one's contentious. No. So many talking points, so many upsets. Max Verstappen takes pole, but we knew that already.
Yeah.
But let's talk about, of course, one of the first things that we were talking about, penalties. Why so many penalties? And it's not, again, this is not one of those times where I can say, yeah, the stewards were unfair. Every single one of them, I'm like, what are these drivers thinking?
Yeah, I think it's because of the conditions that the drivers were, trying to really push hard and trying to get their laps in. I think it was that. Plus, when we talk about penalties, Yuki Tsunoda got one. Carlos
Sainz got one.
Nico Hulkenberg, and
I think Charles also got one.
Charles?
I think he did. Let me just check that. We can
Let's
check that. Yeah.
But while we're on the topic, we're talking about Carlos here, and I've been reading a lot of tweets and comments on the F1 qualifying videos and all of that. And people are really not happy with the way that Carlos Sainz is driving these days.
Exactly.
I don't know. I mean, I kind of sympathize with Carlos at this point because he's in a really bad car. Charles is very unhappy, by the way. We will touch on that topic later. But then it's just such a frustrating time for the Ferrari drivers that you have no other option than to push.
Exactly.
But then Carlos is, I think, breaking the limit a little bit here because he's driving dangerously, to be fair.
Exactly. I mean, he was on the racing line whilst not even on a push lap. He wasn't on a push lap. If you're on a out lap, you can stay off the racing line, especially when it's towards the end of quali. Everyone is going to be looking to push hard. Why be slow on the racing line? Gasly, had he not taken evasive cover and gotten off the racing line, taken the exit road, would have been crashing straight into the back of Sainz, and it would have been no fault of Gasly's if he had done that. He took that evasive action. That was full credit to him. But he didn't need to actually be in that position to begin with. He was trying a push lap, and that's why Gasly, by the way, you saw that Alpine had pace. Ocon was in Q3. If they had to have two of them there, would have been much better. Unfortunately for them, Gasly is now going to have to run through the field, which is easier said than done, especially in a midfield car.
Exactly. And I mean, that car is at best, good for the last 5 places, last 10 places, I would say. Last 10 places, that would last 5 places, I would say. That's not an incredible car to be in, but Gasly and Yuki have been doing well in there.
Yeah.
I mean, for that car, they've been doing well. But then Yuki Tsunoda, the way he was driving yesterday
again he was rash too.
Yeah, he was rash too, impeding. I think it had a lot to do with the fact that we're seeing 4 similar penalties, 4 same penalties is because, the conditions.
Yeah, of
Everyone's
course.
just trying to get their lap in before, the conditions get worse or there's more water on the track.
Yeah.
I think it could be that. But then,
It's also, I think, sports, it's a gamesmanship.
Yeah.
You've seen it happen because, again, I'll go back to 2019. It was the Italian Grand Prix where you had that farcical scene where everyone is slow because no one wants to get ahead, everyone wants the toe.
Yeah.
And then in the end, pretty much every car just could not set a qualifying lap because the clock ran out. Now, we know what the rules are. The clock runs out. If you start your final lap before the clock runs out, you're allowed to do it even after the clock has gone down to 0. But because no one was able to start, because everyone was eagerly waiting for the other to push, no one could set a time. And this was similar. Why do that? I think honestly, the F1 and the FI need to look at the rules and say, you know what, if you have guys doing that, then you should give them a penalty too.
Yeah.
Because that's dangerous. You would have plenty of drivers who are not on that, would be on different strategies, who might actually, as what almost happened to Gasly, could end up crashing into a back car of the car. And no one wants crashes in the era of the budget cap. It's just too expensive.
It's too expensive. I mean, look at what happened with Haas last year.
Yeah.
Last year, or was it?
Yeah, last year, 22, when Mick was constantly crashing.
Oh my God. That was, I think, 14 million
worth of crashes.
Yeah, that's really bad for Haas. Considering that they come in a little tiny truck where you would probably send off bakeries in them.
But that's the
Baked
thing.
goods, not bakeries.
Yeah, but that's the thing. And especially for a midfield team, that money is a lot. You could be using that money to get upgraded parts, work on the car. Instead, you're actually focused on, we need to fix the car in general because someone crashed. And it's worse so when it's no fault of your own.
Exactly.
Tsunoda yesterday was again kind of on that impeding thing. Sainz was on the impeding thing. But let's also talk about Sainz's teammate, a certain Charles Leclerc, who's not a happy chappy at all.
I am so sad about that because the way that, it's just unwinding in the most unpleasant, unpretty way possible. It's just at this point ugly.
Yeah.
The way that things are going down between Charles and Ferrari, because this one quote that Charles, I don't know where exactly
it was on team radio, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't exactly remember where it happened, but I remember seeing a grab of it, and he said something along the lines of why don't you just listen to me once? I'm going to cry right now, and it's because of you guys. That just that broke me as a fan, because we've been seeing them since they were little kids, and how much potential they bring in. And to see them in this state, when you know that they have the potential, when you know they have the car, but it's just not working out. And it kind of reminded me of this one Indian driver in F2 years ago, I think 4-5 years ago. He was in there, and there were a lot of talks about racism and him not being welcomed on the in the grid,
Right.
And his team wasn't particularly very kind to him as well, and they would purposely mess up his strategy or something.
Right.
Things were happening. A lot of things were said about that, and in one final race, he was bawling in the car, and his he was talking on the radio, and he said something like, "This is done. I admit you've messed up my career forever now, and I'm leaving right now." And he was never seen after that.
Yeah, that's sad.
And that Charles
was
radio,
admittedly
it reminded me of that, and I'm like, this is a very sad place to be in.
And that's the thing with Ferrari. They have seemingly been, I don't know what their problems are with strategy. They don't seem to take feedback.
No.
They're not really thinking on their feet. And that's the thing. I mean, yesterday you saw in Q2, at one point Alex Albon was on top of the time charts. Why?
Yeah.
Because Williams were quick to realize that, okay, the track is drying. Before everyone else, let's quickly get a timing done on the slick tires, because the rain might come back.
Yeah.
That's what they did. When Charles was asking for them to switch to slicks, they just said, no, the Inter is the best tire, you set your time. By the time he got the tires warmed up, it started raining further.
Right.
At the time when, by the way, the tires were giving him no grip. Why? Because the conditions were dried out.
Yes.
It's just so frustrating. I'm like, what are these guys doing? How do you not make a simple strategy like that, a simple call? I mean, a team like Williams with nothing to lose were pulling it off. And by the way, at one point, the difference in the timings, Alex Albon, in the slowest car on the grid, was lapping a second quicker than everyone else just because of the tires. Everyone else was in Inters. Then people realized, they're like, no, we need to get on the slicks. Everyone except Ferrari. And then what happens? Leclerc is again knocked out in Q2. And the sad thing is, this Ferrari, qualifying is really important to them. Why? They have good pace over a single lap. During the races, those tires just get eaten into.
I know.
So it's all about the management game.
Right.
When it's management happening, you ideally want to be starting in front, because then it just gets easier to manage your tires. They're not able to do that at all.
Not at all. And bad racing aside, bad driving aside, bad movements aside, let's talk about Nico. Oh my God.
I mean, yeah.
He put in his best flying lap 1 second before the race was stopped. The
quali was stopped. Yeah.
1 second before.
And then unfortunately,
incredible for Nico. But then,
that was just bad timing. I don't think he would have even realized it.
Yeah.
But I mean, the rule is a rule, and he was penalized.
The grid penalties came late after.
Much later.
And, everyone would be celebrating. Nico would be celebrating, and then boom.
Like, no.
You're no longer starting at the front of the grid.
Exactly. You're no longer P2. Back to P5 you go. 3 place grid penalty. And again, as I say, it's a bit harsh, but in certain ways, you're like, okay, fair enough. I understand where it is they're coming from. At least this time they're being consistent with their rule application. So if people deserved penalties, it wasn't a case of like a Sainz didn't get a penalty, but a Nico did. Both of them got it because they were in contravention of the rules, which is fair. But yeah, that was very good driving on his part. I think he outdrove that Haas.
Yeah.
It would have been very interesting to see where he could have finished from P2, because again in race trim, I do think the Astons and the Mercedes who were starting behind him would have been much quicker. But yeah, speaking of that, by the way, you got your prediction spot on. Top 3.
Spot on.
Top 3.
My prediction was for the race, but anyways, spot on.
At least for quali, so far so good. It's Verstappen, Hamilton, it's Verstappen, Alonso and Hamilton.
Then Hamilton.
That's the top three.
I mean, I was going through the quali, standings, and I said, oh, wait a second.
But I think that's the key. Again, if you're talking about this so far, we've gotten right. I think the Mercedes boys are going to be very happy with how qualifying went. One very simple reason. They have two drivers who can attack Alonso.
Yeah. But then look at what happened in the quali. Hamilton and Alonso, the kind of experience they're bringing. Alonso did so good yesterday.
Yeah?
And look at Stroll, P13?
Yeah.
P13. And then Checo, P12. What's going on? You're in a
That
rocket
guy-
of a car.
That guy is somehow making Valtteri Bottas seem like the best number two that we've seen in recent years.
Oh
Because,
gosh.
I mean, in this sort of a car, at least Bottas for maybe 7-8 races used to give Hamilton a fight. This guy's title challenge has fallen off the cliff after 3 or 4 races. And now this is, I think, the second qualifying on the trot where he's not even made it to Q3.
No.
How do you justify not making it to Q3?
I don't know.
Constantly. Okay, sometimes I understand freak things happen, but if the freak things are constantly happening, then maybe you're part of the problem.
Come on.
Not this year's
you're
Red Bull.
sitting in a Red Bull.
Not this year's Red Bull.
Yeah.
2023, there's the fastest car by some margin.
Yeah.
At the very least, be finishing P2, P3. You're nowhere to be seen in that regard.
I get, if something like this happened in the race, I get that. People overtake you, pit stops go haywire, whatever.
You'll end
whatever.
up crashing into someone.
Something happens.
Exactly.
But quali, there's no one in your way. You have a rocket of a car, put your best lap in and start at the front of the grid. Max is doing it.
Exactly.
I don't get it.
That's the thing with Sergio. This used to be his bigger problems even in other cars.
Yeah.
Never the best qualifier.
Never.
Much better in a race, but in qualifying, and that's the thing. I think if you're a world champion material, you have to be at least competent as a qualifier. Consistently, if you have a car that fast, you need to be targeting top 3 at the very least.
Yeah.
Anything other than that is inexcusable a job that you're doing. And again, you have to remember Monaco is not one of those tracks that is very easy to overtake. Yes, there are places where you can, but even in a rocket of a car, how many chances are you going to get? Other cars are also good. You saw what happened in Spain. He had to make his way through the grid, and in the end, he couldn't even get past the Mercedes cars. Why? Because he just left himself too much to do.
Yeah.
That's why if you have a rocket of a car in qualifying, you need to be sticking it higher on the grid. And I think, by the way, this is now, if this continues, you're going to be seeing a lot of whispers about his future in the team.
Yeah.
Red Bull, we know for a fact, are ruthless.
Oh yeah, and there's this little theory going around, which I love, by the way, that Daniel Ricciardo was basically brought in back by the Red Bull as a threat to Checo, as a threat to his place. That if Checo isn't able to, kind of match Max Verstappen's success, Daniel Ricciardo is right there to replace you. I mean, it's sort of a warning to Checo.
Yeah.
I don't know how much of that is true, but it's a very, very fun conspiracy theory to get behind.
Wouldn't even be shocked if it was true.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I envy Danny Rick right now because you're getting paid to do nothing.
Yeah, you're getting paid to make faces at George Russell.
Yeah. And,
and do other things which we can't talk about on camera.
Yeah, but still, I mean, of course, it's sad that he's not in a F1 car right now, but nothing is going wrong at the moment for him, isn't it?
Yeah, and if by chance they actually end up going that route, I can't think of too many drivers in their junior categories right now who impressed to that point. That they'll be like, no, you can go next to Verstappen. No, Ricciardo's an easy short-term stopgap. He's actually younger than Perez. You have to remember that as well. So he has at least a good 3-4 years ahead of him. Yeah. Perez, I don't know, if he continues to perform like this, let's assume, for instance, you had a team that were, say it was like 2021, where you had the Mercs and the Red Bulls on pretty much even keel. They could lose out on the constructors. That's what happened in 2021 too. Yeah. They didn't win the constructors because Checo just wasn't getting them enough points and podiums that they needed. Whereas with Bottas, even on his bad weekends, he was at least getting you a 3rd or a 4th.
Yeah,
that's the thing. You need those constructors championship points too, because without that, that is where your source of revenue is. Higher you finish in the constructors, the better your prize money. And Red Bull right now, I know they're romping past everything, but Checo's performances have been poor, to say the least. Whether he can make that up in the race though, now let's see, that's going to be his big challenge.
Yeah, and I remember this, now it just struck me that there was this interview where Christian Horner was sitting and someone had asked Horner about if Danny Rick is ready for a race or not, is he race fit or not? And Horner actually started off, on a very light note that we don't know what McLaren did to him. He's so thin, were they not feeding him and all of that? So he said in about a year he'll be race ready. which I think
Interesting.
the conspiracy theory may just be right
Yeah.
about it being a threat to Checo, and of course, like you said, he's much older.
Hmm.
And right now, I think this year was
Make or break really
make
for
or
Checo.
break for Checo and Red Bull. And I think it could very well be that Danny Rick comes back next year.
If it does, I mean, it'll be a one very interesting comeback
Very
story.
interesting.
And I hope he can match Max, because again, with Ricciardo, what is it that he's constantly said? I want a car where I can win races. If I wanted to make up the grid, I could have gone to other teams.
Exactly.
This Red Bull might just give him the best opportunity. Finally fulfill that dream. Very fun. But that's for the future. Canadian Grand Prix predictions. Are you still sticking with yours?
Yes. I'm going Verstappen, Alonso, Hamilton.
I think in the race, maybe you're going to see an intense battle. So I think if you may just very well see if Hamilton can get past Alonso. That's also a big if. But if that happens, I think you could be seeing another Mercedes double podium. Because with George Russell now, he seems to be getting a hang of the car in the races. Qualifying, he's kind of, have you noticed by the way that ever since the upgrades have come, Hamilton has been outperforming him in quali. So I think, but in the race, he does have the, let's say, at least he has an understanding of how the car works long term. If that happens, I will obviously be very happy. Let's see if that can. Again, because this is going to be, I think, a fun race.
The prediction
Beyond
you're going with?
is Verstappen win, Derb,
Okay.
and a double Mercedes podium.
George Russell in there?
Yes.
I don't know.
Let's see.
Let's see.
Predictions are fun. I predicted Lance Stroll would be on pole. What do I know?
13.
What do I know? Be 13.
He's got to do something.
Yeah, but not like his seat's in danger though.
No, but still, I mean, he's still gonna get a beating from his dad.
Do we know that for sure?
Yeah?
I hope it's a verbal one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So we're
hopefully.
getting a few comments.
Interesting.
AJ Scon is asking, who's better, Hamilton or Verstappen?
I mean, judging on what precisely? Career retrospectives, Hamilton would be better. Career retrospective. But again,
Career, yes.
it's
As a driver, I believe.
as a driver, see, I think both of them are very different drivers, personality-wise as well as
I
style-wise.
think they're different drivers. I think they're very similar. If you look at young Hamilton,
Yeah.
and
I'm talking about them
Verstappen
now.
right now.
No, I'm talking about both of them right now. Like the Hamilton of 2023 and the Verstappen of 2023, very different drivers. Yes, if you compare young Hamilton versus young Verstappen or even current Verstappen, very much of the same ilk. But I think you need that to be successful.
Right.
You can't be a nice guy and succeed.
I feel that they're quite similar. I
Yeah.
mean, they think in similar ways.
Yeah, they both have that single-minded ruthlessness.
The aggression that
Yeah,
they
yeah,
bring in, it's very.
That I agree with, absolutely.
So I think that's.
That's it. That's the
That
best comment we can
concludes
take. Yes, we've made our predictions. You can let us know your predictions in the comments below. And please don't forget, if you enjoyed this video, like, share, subscribe, follow us across social media, and don't forget
To download the Sportstech app.
right? So from Gargi and me, for now, it's goodbye.